Good morning. How's everyone doing today? I hear a lot of coughing and all that kind of stuff. I know there's a lot of sickness going around, trust me. I've been seeing a lot, not just here. Let me pray first. So, Lord, thank you so much for having me up here today just to testify and glorify you, Lord. Lord, you've done so much in my life, and you're doing so much around everyone else's life around here, Lord. And I just love to witness the things that you have done. And Lord, just be with me this morning and give me the words that you want me to speak, Lord, and just show me what you need someone to hear today, Lord. And I will be the vessel that sends that off for you, Lord. Amen. There's a lot of sickness. So most of you know that I am in LPN school. So I haven't, sorry, gotta get my stuff up. So I haven't been here very often during the days, especially I'm here mostly at nights and on duty a couple times, but all that to say that like God is so amazing in the plans that he sets. I could not have imagined my life to be the way it is now before I came here. In the back of my mind, I wanted all this, but there was that point in time when I just felt like I didn't deserve it. I was doing so much bad stuff, sin and drugs and all that kind of stuff, that I didn't think I was qualified anymore to be in the medical field, because in my head, those people didn't do that stuff. How can you be around people giving them medications when you were the one taking the medications, and God is using me in that for sure. And I have been around some things that I'm amazed by. Guys, I know I've told some people here, but I got to see a C-section, and that was the most amazing thing. I know it sounds gross and you guys are probably disgusted, but for us women, that was the most miraculous thing that I've ever seen. I've never had any kids, and I've never been in there when someone had a kid. So to see that baby come out and cry and be healthy and happy, I started crying because I was like, that's a miracle from Jesus. You don't realize the structure that is involved in having this baby in the first place, and then just to be able to see the doctor just pull that baby out, I was like, that's crazy. It was really crazy. And I was probably the only one that ever cried over that, but that's because I saw what Jesus had done, and everyone was happy, everyone was healthy. So anyway, this has nothing to do with that, but my topic is why God doesn't just pull us out, which has nothing to do with pulling a baby out. But I don't know, that just somehow led to that. But why God doesn't just pull us out of situations that we were in. I went down a path of destruction, but it wasn't until I was 17, later on in life, I started getting into drugs and all that kind of stuff. But why didn't God stop me from that? Why didn't he just say, nope, Carinda, you're not going to do that. We're just going to snatch you up out of that. Why didn't he, protect me, save me from that? That was my questions before. Why did I have to go through that stuff? But I see now, why God allowed for that to continue. He didn't put me in it. First of all, I put myself in that. I brought myself to that situation. And we all have a choice to make. God gives us a choice because he loves us. He says, if that's what you really, really want, I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to be hurt, but I'm going to give it to you because I love you, and I'm going to give you what you want. Even though I know it's going to destroy your life, I'm going to still give it to you. But in that, he protected me. In that, he used me. Right? In that, he saved my life. There could have been a lot of things that happened to me that did not happen to me. I did not end up in jail. I did not end up dead. I did not end up kidnapped or raped or anything like that. I did not end up having to go through all that stuff because that wasn't my path. I know that There are people that did have to go through that. God will use that in your life, right? He saved me from that because that wasn't part of my path. If I had a felony right now, I would not be allowed in the LPN program, right? That's part of that. You cannot have felonies to be a nurse. God knew that. So the things I was doing, I should have been in jail and gotten felonies for. God saved me from that because he knew what was coming later down in the road, right? He saw that. He knew, CARINDA, you're going to LPN school. You're going to be a nurse. You can't have a felony. So I'm going to try to change your heart and change your mind to make you stop what you're doing, stop being stupid, and I'm going to protect you this time, right? God doesn't pull us out because he's using us. Also, if I didn't go through what I went through, I would not know Jesus at all. My life before was good, but I did not know Jesus. And because it was good, I did not have to know Jesus in my mind, right? I had a good family. I had friends. I had everything I needed according to CARINDA. I did not need Jesus. So Jesus knew that. If he's going to use me, he has to bring me down to a level that he has to be able to use me, right? He can't convince me that he needs to be in my life if I'm not willing to accept that I need him, right? And that didn't happen until after all that, after homelessness, after overdoses, after all that stuff, like 10 different rehabs. That's how God used me, pulling me from a different state. John 11:4. This is a story about Lazarus. But when Jesus heard about it, he said, Lazarus' sickness will not end in death. No, it happened for the glory of God, so that the Son of God will receive glory from this. So although Jesus loved Martha, Mary, and Lazarus, he stayed where he was for the next 2 days. Finally, he said to his disciples, let's go back to Judea. I'm a terrible reader, but I'm in LPN school, don't worry, guys. But his disciples objected. Rabbi, they said, only a few days ago, the people in Judea were trying to stone you. Are you going there again? Jesus replied, there are 12 hours of daylight every day. During the day, people can walk safely. They can see because they have light of this world. But at night, there is danger of stumbling because they have no light. Then he said, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but now I will go and wake him up. The disciples said, Lord, if he is sleeping, he will soon get better. They thought Jesus meant Lazarus was simply sleeping, but Jesus meant Lazarus had died. So he told them plainly, Lazarus is dead, and for your sakes, I'm glad I wasn't there, for now you will really believe. Come on, let's go see him. So Jesus waited 2 days after knowing that Lazarus was dead. He knew he was dead, but he waited 2 days. Why? For the glory of God. For your sakes, right? And for your sake, I'm glad I wasn't there, for now you will really believe. So for your sake, I wasn't there so that you can see the glory of God in this. Jesus easily could have brought Lazarus right back up. No one to see it, no one to witness it. It would have done nothing for God, right? So he could have pulled him out of that quickly, easily. But people had to see to believe, right? They had to know that Jesus did this. They had to know that it was God glorifying in that moment, right? So in order to pull us out of that death, God's not just going to wipe it away from me. He's not just going to say, okay, you don't remember this anymore. Okay, I'm just going to make sure no one sees a change in you. You're just the same person, but you're just not on drugs, right? Because he needed someone to see the glory of God shine through me. That rhymed. Yeah. And that does happen. That is happening, right? I see it here all the time because of you guys. Like, from beginning to end, like, we see that change in you. And it gives us hope and it gives us belief. And it continues with our faith. My family, I didn't see a change in me at first, but they did. And from that, they were able to find Jesus. They were able to get themselves clean, right? They were able to get themselves back on the right path. Because Jesus needed to use me for his glory. Jesus needs to use you for his glory. Would you have accepted him if you didn't need him? No, you had to be at your lowest of low to where you were like, I need Jesus, right? And the way you had to get there is going to be different than me and different than anyone else, but you got there, right? And God brought you to a place where you could seek him and you could find him. Judges chapter 3. You know, all these years I haven't learned to like mark my pages, which I really should do. So verses just 1 through 2. These are the nations that the Lord left in the land to test those Israelites who had not experienced the wars of Canaan. He did this to teach warfare to generations of Israelites who had no experience in battle. So he left Israeli to fight so they can learn how to war, to teach them to trust him in the fight, right? So they had no experience, not experienced the wars of Canaan. God didn't have to leave them there, right? He could have rerouted them, pulled them out, whatever. He left them there so they could experience that because he knew later down the road they're going to need that. They're going to need to know how this works. They're going to need to know what to do, and they're going to need to know that they need to rely on me to get through that, right? Genesis chapter 39. There's so many examples of people in the Bible that were put in situations that weren't just pulled out of these situations. Let's start with Genesis 39. Come on. 39. Okay. Verse 16. Okay, so I wanted to start with this verse because I wanted you to know why Joseph was put into jail. Okay, so Joseph was put into jail because of something he didn't do, right? Potiphar's wife had accused him of raping her. When he turned her away, he said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to come with you. So she didn't like the fact that he turned her away. So she grabbed his cloak and accused him of rape. He was put into jail for that, right? So going to Joseph being put into jail, we're going to go to, let's see, 39:20. So he took Joseph and threw him into prison where the king's prisoners were held, and there he remained. But the Lord was with Joseph in the prison, and he showed him his faithful love. And the Lord made Joseph a favorite with the prison warden. Before long, the warden put Joseph in charge of all the other prisoners and over everything that happened in the prison. The warden had no more worries because Joseph took care of everything. The Lord was with him and caused everything he did to succeed. I highlighted in this one, so I'm going to go to my Bible on my phone. So even though Joseph was in jail, God is using him in jail, right? Already, just right off the bat, he started using him. Okay, go to Genesis 41. 41:13 or 15. 15. Yeah, sorry. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, I had a dream last night. So now Joseph's been in jail. He's being used to interpret dreams, right? So Pharaoh was having this dream, and he said, I had a dream last night, and no one here can tell me what it means, but I have heard that when you hear about a dream, you can interpret it. It is beyond my power to do this, Joseph replied, but God can tell you what it means and set you at ease. So Pharaoh told Joseph his dream. In my dream, he said, I was standing on the bank of the Nile River, and I saw 7 fat, healthy cows come up out of the river and begin grazing in the marsh grass. But then I saw 7 sick-looking cows, scrawny and thin, come up after them. I've never seen such sorry-looking animals in all the land of Egypt. These thin, scrawny cows ate the 7 fat cows. But then afterward, you wouldn't have known it, for they were still as thin and scrawny as before. Then I woke up. In my dream, I also saw 7 heads of grain, full and beautiful, growing on a single stalk. Then 7 more heads of grain appeared, but these were blighted, shriveled, and withered by the east wind. And the shriveled heads swallowed the 7 healthy heads. I told these dreams to the magicians, but no one could tell me what they mean. Yep. Joseph responded, both of the Pharaoh's dreams mean the same thing. God is telling Pharaoh in advance what he is about to do. The 7 healthy cows and the 7 healthy heads of grain both represent 7 years of prosperity. The 7 thin, scrawny cows that came up later and the 7 thin heads of grain withered by the east wind represent 7 years of famine. So God has told Pharaoh this dream to warn him about a famine that is coming. He needed someone, hold on, I was reading that. He needed someone to interpret that dream, so he used Joseph, right? And Joseph said, God is telling you what's going to happen. He's pre-warning you, right? So later on, he uses Joseph for this dream. All along, Joseph has been in jail, right? Therefore, Pharaoh should find an intelligent and wise man to put him in charge of the entire land of Egypt. No other than Joseph, right? He used Joseph. He turned him over. Pharaoh said to Joseph, I hereby put you in charge of the entire land of Egypt, right? So he goes from being in prison to being in charge of the entire land of Egypt, right? Because he was able to interpret this dream because God used him. God put him in a place to be used to help warn about the famine, and now he is being the one to rule over Egypt, right? Then Pharaoh removed his signet ring from his hand and placed it on Joseph's finger. He dressed him in fine linen clothing and hung a gold chain around his neck. Then he had Joseph ride in the chariot reserved for his second in command, and wherever Joseph went, the command was shouted, kneel down. So Pharaoh put Joseph in charge of all of Egypt. I'm going to skip down to 46 because I want you to hear this. Genesis 41:46. He was 30 years old when he began serving in the court of Pharaoh. Right? I pull that out because God's using him here at 30 years old. Right? How many of us got help when we were about 30 years old? Right? Right? We found Jesus around that time. So God can use us at all ages. If you're younger, if you're older, it doesn't matter. He used Joseph when he was 30 years old. Right? As predicted, for 7 years, the land produced bumper crops. During those years, Joseph gathered all the crops. So he stored it all up because he knew these 7 years were coming. And then during that famine, they had enough stored up to where no one would starve. He could start handing them out small groups, and they started being able to sell it. So they were able to make some profit off of it, right? So not only did all of this happen, But Joseph was able to provide and help restore and keep and save the lives from everyone in Egypt, right? So, back to, you can be used no matter where you are, right? You have to go through some things. Joseph had to be put in jail for nothing he did, right? He did absolutely nothing wrong. But God knew he needed to go into prison, right? Because God knew that that's where he needed to be to help with this famine, to help Pharaoh see that God can do things and help Pharaoh to believe that God is real, right? So you're going to be used for those same purposes, right? You're going to be used to show that God is real. God is something to believe in. God is something to be faithful for, because people are going to see that in you. You got to believe it, right? If you don't believe it, other people aren't going to see it, right? Because you have to have faith. You have to believe, right? Believe that God put you in these places for a reason. I would have never said that I was homeless for 2.5 years or that I was a drug addict for nothing. No, God's using me in that. I would have never been able to see that if I didn't get put through that and walked through it, brought through it. Daniel in the lion's den, he could have been pulled out, but no, God was there with him, right? Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego in the fire. God could have pulled them out of that. He went in there with them, right? He protects us. He doesn't just pull us out. We have to see where we went wrong. We have to see that so that we don't go back to that, number one. If we didn't realize it was bad, we would continue doing it, right? Or if we were easily just pulled out of it, it would have been just as easy to go right back to it. I know, because that happened a few times for me. I had a little out. I took that little out. I got clean for a little bit. I went right back to it because I didn't know God. God didn't give me the things that I got, right? In my head, I earned those things. I did those things. I had to lose everything and be brought to a place where I could find Jesus. I had to be humbled down to my knees to where I could say, Jesus is the only one doing this for me. Jesus is the only one that got me into LPN school. Jesus is the only one getting me good grades in LPN school. My memory was shot. My brain was terrible. And I'm passing these classes with A's. Like, that's Jesus. Like, that's none other than Jesus. And the things that I'm seeing and I'm able to do while I'm in these clinicals, like, I pray sometimes, I pray all the time, but sometimes I'm like, Lord, just put me like in a spot today where I could do a lot of things, like, so I can, get good hands on. And they'll be like, all right, well, you're over here today. And I'm like, oh, gosh, well, guess what? I get to that area that I didn't want them in, and I see so many different things that I never expected to see, like the C-section. Like, I was not expecting that, right? So I didn't want to be in labor and delivery that day, because I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be in the nursery with the babies. I wanted to hold babies that day. And that's what I was asking for. Lord, just put me in the nursery today. I'll have so much fun. No, you're going to go in labor and delivery, because I'm going to show you a miracle, because you've never seen this before, right? And that was the most touching thing that I've ever seen in my life. Like, disgusting, yes. But I like that. I like gory stuff. I don't know. But it's amazing. It really is. Like, God's going to use you. God put you through, or God allowed you to go through situations that you never would have thought you would have been in to use you. Jake said it last night. Was the most important thing for him, that he was being used. Right? That was his most important blessing, was that he was able to be used. Right? And all of you, me, we are being used by God. Right? So don't question anymore why God didn't just take you out of certain situations. Just thank him that he did and see what he has for you next. Amen? Can you pray me out? Cameron?